Hello and welcome to our lesson on quadratics, factoring with numbers and variables, part 2. If you remember on step 4, we'd circled the factors that had worked. Now in step 5, we're going to put those factors into a binomial. Remember that 3 plus 4 equaled 7, and that was what our b value was. Our a value was 1, our b value was 7, and our c value was 12. Now we're just going to take these factors of 3 and 4, and we're going to put them into a binomial. Binomial, if you remember, are just the two set of parentheses with the variable plus or minus the number. In this case, we've got a variable of x, so it's x, and we found out our factors were a positive 3 and a positive 4. So we're just going to write plus 3 and plus 4. Now we've created our binomials. In step 6, we're going to divide each factor of the binomial by whatever your a value is. Your a value is 1. Even though it seems silly to have to divide by 1, get into the habit of always dividing by the letter, the variable a, because if you forget to divide by a, even if it's a 1, you're going to always forget to do it. What if it wasn't a 1? What if it was a 2 or a 5 or a 10? That's going to make a definite difference in your answer. So always, even if it's 1, divide by 1. In step 7, you're going to reduce the fractions if possible. So you're going to look at 3 over 1 and 4 over 1. Turns out those are reduced as fully as they can be because 3 divided by 1 is still 3, and 4 divided by 1 is still 4. Now you're going to move those variable denominators right here. You're going to move the denominators over to the coefficient position, which means you're going to move them up in front of the x. So if we move them, they're going to look like 1x plus 3 times 1x plus 4. But remember in algebra, if we have a 1 as a coefficient, we don't usually write it. But again, keep in practice of moving that over because in a lot of your quadratics that you'll be solving, 1 is not going to be the denominator. It's going to be a larger number. So remember, you always put it as the denominator and then scoot it over to the coefficient position. All right, we've found our factors. We had x plus 3 times x plus 4 because 3 plus 4 equals 7, and that was our b. And 3 times 4 also equals 12, and that was our a times c. So our binomial should be x plus 3 times x plus 4, and that should multiply up to the original quadratic that we were trying to factor. But there's one last thing you should do. You should always double check your answer, and you use the FOIL method to do that. If you remember, FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, and last. So the first is going to be x times x. So we're going to write it out. X times x equals x squared. Because when you multiply exponents, you really don't. You add them together. Then x times 4. And in algebra, we always write the coefficient, then the variable. It's going to be 4x. Notice how I'm taking the signs with them. They're all positive. I didn't change any signs. If they were negative, I would have written negatives. Then for your inside, you're going to do the two inside terms, which are 3 times x. So that's going to lead you to 3x. And then your last are going to be usually the two pure numbers. So it's 3 times 4, and that's going to equal 12. Now you're going to take all of those and list it as one long equation. So you've got x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. They were all positives, which is why they're all positives here as well. If they were negatives, I would have moved the negative sign with them. And all that should equal 0. Now you should notice something right here. Your o and your I are like terms, so we can go ahead and combine them. So we're going to take 4 x's and add 3 x's to them. When we do that, we should get x squared plus 7x plus 12 equals 0. Now the double check says, if the answer that you got from FOIL matches the original quadratic equation, then we've got our correct answer. It turns out this is a dead-on match to the original problem they wanted us to solve, so that tells us that our factors of x plus 3 times x plus 4 are the correct answer. Now a quick review on the last 4 steps. You put the factors into binomials. Those are the two sets of parentheses. You divide the numbers in the binomial by the a value, specifically just the numbers, not the x value. And even if it's 1, still do it anyway so you get into the habit of it. Reduce the fractions if at all possible. Then move the denominator from the reduced fraction to the coefficient position, the number that goes in front of the variable. And then always, always, always double check with FOIL. It's like having the answer key right in front of you. If the double check matches your original quadratic, you did the right work. And that's it for our lesson on quadratics, factoring with numbers and variables, part 2.